Colombia rescues deportees. The United States didn't see it coming. Colombia agrees to receive its citizens who were going to be deported this Sunday from the United States. Find out all the details of this news. Don't forget to like the video and comment if you support Colombia or the United States. The horizon of international relations between the United States and Colombia has become tense in recent weeks, unleashing a series of events that have captured global attention. The administration led by Donald Trump has taken measures that reshape the delicate balance between both nations, generating repercussions that transcend borders. In this context, the threats of tariffs and the use of military aircraft for deportations have placed Colombia in a complex position, while the human rights of thousands of people are at stake. It all started with an unexpected announcement. President and again, candidate Donald Trump declared his intention to impose significant tariffs on Colombian products if the country did not agree to receive its nationals deported from the United States. This type of economic pressure, a recurring tool in Trump's foreign policy, provoked an immediate response from the Colombian government, which was in a delicate situation. The possibility of severe damage to the national economy, dependent on key exports like coffee and flowers, made it impossible to ignore the threats. At the same time, reports began to arrive from detention centers in the United States. Entire families, separated by immigration policies, faced an uncertain future. Deportation flights, which for years had been a constant under different administrations, were transformed into a spectacle charged with tension and drama. On this occasion, the planes used were military aircraft, a detail that sparked criticism for its symbolism and its impact on the deportees. Colombia, caught between the demands of the North American power and internal protests, finally announced that it would accept its nationals. This move was interpreted as a surrender to pressure from Washington, but also as a pragmatic measure to avoid major consequences. The images of the first flights arriving in Colombian territory caused commotion. On each face of the deportees, you could read a mixture of desolation and resignation. People who had built their lives in the United States for years suddenly found themselves in a country that, for many, they no longer felt was their own. In the midst of this crisis, President Gustavo Petro and his government stood out for their effort and generosity in receiving the deportees. Despite the criticisms and economic difficulties facing Colombia, Petro stressed the importance of providing support to his fellow citizens at such a critical time. These people are our brothers and sisters, and as a country, we have the responsibility to welcome them and help them rebuild their lives, the president declared. The government also implemented measures to facilitate the reintegration of the deportees, including employment programs and psychological support, recognizing that forced return can be traumatic and challenging. Meanwhile, the streets of Colombia were the scene of demonstrations. Human rights organizations, activists, and ordinary citizens expressed their indignation at what they considered a dehumanizing migration policy. They also criticized the Colombian government for giving in to the threats. "We are not merchandise," read a sign at a protest in Bogota, reflecting the feeling of those who saw this situation as a demonstration of the power imbalance between the two countries. In Washington, reactions were also mixed. While Trump's supporters applauded the measure as a show of strength in foreign policy, other sectors questioned the use of tariffs and mass deportations as negotiating tools. Political analysts warned about the possible long-term negative effects for the image of the United States in Latin America, a region that has historically been key to its geopolitical interests. The situation also highlighted the structural difficulties faced by migrants. Many of the deportees were people who had left Colombia fleeing violence, poverty, or lack of opportunities. In the United States, they found precarious jobs, discrimination, and a system that often treated them as second-class citizens. Now, upon being returned to Colombia, they face new challenges: reintegration into a society that is not always prepared to receive them, and the struggle to rebuild their lives from scratch. The decision to use military aircraft for the deportations added an additional element of controversy. The images of these aircraft, traditionally associated with war operations, were interpreted by some as a message of strength and authority from the United States. However, for others, they represented a display of the dehumanization of migrants, treated as a threat instead of as human beings with rights. On the diplomatic front, the Colombian government announced its intention to engage in dialogue with Washington to seek long-term solutions that allow for the management of migration flow in a more just and efficient manner. However, relations between the two countries are at a moment of tension. Recent actions have left scars that could take years to heal. While tensions with Washington continue, Colombia is preparing to join the BRICS, a group of emerging countries that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This move could significantly change the country's economic and political landscape. Gap 2S. BRICS membership promises numerous potential benefits for Colombia. From access to new markets to the possibility of attracting greater foreign investment, inclusion in this economic bloc could boost development and long-term stability. Gap 2S. Reactions to this decision have been varied. Nationally, there is palpable enthusiasm among business and investment sectors who see in BRICS an opportunity to diversify trade relations and reduce dependence on the United States. However, there are also critical voices that warn about the challenges and risks of aligning with economies not always aligned with Western democratic values. Gap 2S. Internationally, the news has generated considerable interest. The BRICS member countries have welcomed Colombia, seeing its entry as an opportunity to strengthen the bloc and increase its global influence. Gap 2S. In economic terms, joining BRICS could bring a boost in cooperation in areas such as infrastructure, technology, and energy. Politically, this could represent a change of course in Colombian foreign policy, opening new alliances and reducing the traditional dependence on the United States. Gap 2S. Socially, the expectation is that this membership will contribute to an improvement in the quality of life of Colombians through more inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Gap 2S. As Colombia prepares to join BRICS, expectations are high. The nation hopes that this decision will be a step towards a more prosperous and balanced future in which it can play a more active role on the international scene. La reciente inclusión de Colombia en el grupo BRICS marca un hito importante en sus relaciones internacionales. Se espera que esta decisión traiga numerosos beneficios económicos y políticos al país, mejorando su posición global y fomentando lazos más fuertes con otras naciones BRICS. El futuro se ve prometedor mientras Colombia se embarca en este nuevo viaje. Gap 2S, sin embargo, este cambio estratégico también viene con sus propios desafíos. Adaptarse a las políticas económicas y la dinámica del mercado de los países BRICS requerirá ajustes significativos. El gobierno colombiano ya ha comenzado a implementar medidas destinadas a facilitar esta transición. Estas incluyen nuevos acuerdos comerciales, inversión en tecnología y proyectos de infraestructura diseñados para alinearse con los estándares BRICS. Gap 2S. Uno de los beneficios más esperados es el potencial para una mayor inversión extranjera. La membresía BRICS abre la puerta a una gama más amplia de inversionistas y socios, ofreciendo a Colombia nuevas oportunidades para diversificar su economía. Gap 2S. Además, el enfoque en el desarrollo de infraestructura podría conducir a mejores servicios públicos y creación de empleo, impactando positivamente la vida de los colombianos comunes. Gap 2S. Aún así, no todos los sectores son optimistas. Algunos expertos advierten que alinearse con BRICS podría exponer a Colombia a riesgos geopolíticos y volatilidad económica. El gobierno necesitará navegar cuidadosamente estas complejidades para maximizar los beneficios mientras mitiga las desventajas. Gap 2S. Mientras Colombia da un paso en este nuevo camino, el mundo observa de cerca. ¿Traerá este cambio estratégico la prosperidad y estabilidad prometidas, o introducirá nuevos desafíos que la nación deberá superar? Solo el tiempo lo dirá. Gap 2S. Mientras tanto, el viaje de Colombia con BRICS representa una movida audaz hacia un futuro más diversificado y resiliente, uno donde juega un papel más activo en el escenario global. As the situation evolves, fundamental questions arise about the future of migration policies and international relations in an increasingly interconnected world. How to reconcile national sovereignty with the need for international cooperation?